Reaching high. Reaching high.
London. Brooklyn. London. Brooklyn.
In the swamps of Central Florida, there sits a racetrack that has become one of the spiritual bastions of road racing in North America. Welcome, everyone, to Sebring International Raceway, a former airstrip that has since been converted and been running races since 1950 around this fantastic 3.7-mile circuit. It is a bumpy affair, one that challenges both drivers and cars alike, and it's where we find ourselves here for the Race Anywhere World Series League. Hello, everyone. My name is DJ Clark, joined as always in the commentary booth by Ewan O'Leary with our director and producer David Christie behind the scenes. And Ewan, this has been one of those tracks that I have had circled the entire season long. I love coming here to Sebring.
Yeah, it's a nice circuit. It's an iconic circuit, isn't it? It's very, very bumpy, of course, as well. Very, very challenging as well. So I'm sure there's a few people who are not particularly pleased to be here tonight because it's quite hard. But yeah, it's an iconic venue, and we've got two iconic tracks to end off this season in Sebring and Daytona. A kind of North American finish, if you like, and yeah, it's going to be a great end to the season.
It sure is, and there as we take a look at that Pro Championship standings, Sean Campbell looking all the more unbeatable up at the top, especially as drop rounds come into effect, but some very close battles playing themselves out a little further down in the order. A very close battle for second between Harry Wills and Jonathan Roulette. Dean Tim sits in fourth with Daniel Tenorio in fifth. R.A.W.S being able to work his way up through the order there a little bit, as is Chase Wilson. Keep an eye on them. And then a very close battle there between Dave Menino and Jeremy Littleton. Let's go ahead and run you through the AM standings as well, as Justin Delano continues to lead the way, but Shreyas Vetkanranju continues to try to piece that gap back, and now it stands at just under 50 points between the two. Braden Maling holding on to that third place over Casey Metzger, with Jeff Carollo and James Hebb there in the mix as well. Fabian Ponce in a very, very close battle for seventh with Michael Fowler. Daniel Florea not too far back from them, and Matthew Plaisance rounds out our top 10. But we've only got about a minute left to go here in warm-up before we get ready for our first race of the night. That will be the 25-minute sprint race. And Ewan, what are some of your keys around here to getting this very bumpy Sebring circuit right?
Well, it's just about keeping calm and just kind of you got to put the practice in around here more than anything. Because it's not a circuit that you can just pick up and immediately be fast at because of the bumps we mentioned, because of the challenging nature of the circuit. There's not much room for error here in terms of tarmac runoff. There is a bit on the outside here at turn one, as you can see, but even that ends at a point when you get round the middle point of the circuit in some of the more technical sections. There really isn't much room for running off, so you've got to put the practice in really, and then you should be all fine. I think the far more difficult thing for everybody today is actually making overtakes. I wasn't expecting this to be such an issue, but throughout the EU Championship there really wasn't much in the way of overtaking, especially in the first race when everybody was kind of where they're supposed to be in terms of pace. It was very, very tricky for anybody to get anywhere in terms of actual making overtakes. So who knows what it's going to be like this time, because I thought there wasn't going to be too much at the Nürburgring last week, and there turned out to be a fair amount. So we could see that change, but judging on the EU Championship, it is going to be hard to get past one another here at Sebring.
Yeah, it certainly may be, but we'll have to see how everything plays itself out. And let's go ahead and run you through a very long entry list here today. This is the qualifying order. Sean Campbell going to be lining up in pole position to the surprise of no one, with Jonathan Roulette to his outside. Harry Wills and Dean Timms make up row 2, followed by Kai DL. Good to see that number 44 back in the series. Dan Tenorio lining up to his outside. Jeremy Littleton will be in P7, followed by Chase Wilson, and R.A.W.S will round out your pro field.
And then in the AMS, it's another pole position and another great opportunity for Shreyas Vetkanranju to keep this championship alive. Casey Metzger's alongside him. Fabian Ponce will be third ahead of Stephen Martinez and Michael Kulaga. Braden Melling will be on the outside of that row 3. Then it will be Eric Kulaga and championship leader Justin Delano a little bit further down in 8th. But we know how well he races because we saw him qualify not too well last week at the Nürburgring. Andrew Hewson and James Hebrand at the top 10 with Andrew Rasmussen in 11th. Drew Neubauer will be on the outside of row 6. There in that 12th place, and then finally the final few drivers, there's actually quite a fair few more actually. Eric Blumenkrantz and Matthew Plaisance will be on row 7th together. The McLaren of Daniel Florea will be 15th. Charles Boschel 16th ahead of Andrew Hewitt. John Casey, Jeff Carolla and Vita Brass making his second appearance in the World Series GT3 Championship here tonight, having appeared in the EU Championship earlier tonight.
Well, some drivers just can't get enough of this Florida circuit as they work their way now through Gurney Bend. This is one of the areas where we potentially can see some overtaking coming up out of turn 2, down through this long right-hander and then down into the hairpin. It does take a little bit of bravery to be able to get a move done there, Ewan, but I certainly have seen it play out there earlier.
Yeah, we have seen a fair few amount of moves there. I mean, while it's not technically a straight, I suppose, around there at turn 6, it is a long, flat-out section where you can get a bit of slipstream and you can maybe make a move. But I think we're more likely to see first-lap incidents or opening lap incidents down there, judging by, again, what we saw a few hours ago. We had one of the race favourites in race 2, Albin Kjellberg, getting himself through the field nicely on the opening couple of laps, but then when he was in the middle of the pack, got turned around at the hairpin. I think he was at fault actually, Kjellberg, but it was difficult to tell really. He made contact with Stuart Reynolds in the end, and it's difficult to tell who was quite at fault, but in the end it doesn't really matter because a lot of the field had to scatter and a lot of people were held up by that slightly. So I think that's more likely what we're going to see at the hairpin rather than actual overtakes being made, because as I mentioned, it is just difficult.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. And now as we enter into really the second sector of this lap, coming up through the Fangio chicane, through Cunningham Collier, and into Tower, this is really the part of the track where overtaking isn't really a possibility. You mentioned, despite the fact that this is a flat former aerodrome here, it does not lend itself to a lot of overtakings, particularly on the back half of this circuit. You've got to be very, very careful as these corners will fly at you fast and furious, and you've got to be on your toes. Looking specifically here at Jean Debienne and Le Mans, one of the corners you've got to get right to be able to set up the run down the long Ullman Straight.
Yeah, and it will be important to maybe even moves into Sunset Bend will be more viable than at some other points on this racetrack because of that Le Mans section there and the long straight that we have here on the Ullman Straight. So that's a possibility as well. But we'll just have to see how this race plays out and who's where, and then we'll get a better idea as to what might happen. But yeah, not long away from the start now.
No, indeed, we are not, as those pro drivers leading their way down into Sunset Bend right now. As always, we will have a staggered start here into the World Series League GT3 Championship, so the pros will be starting up ahead a little bit from the AMs. Campbell looking like he wants to get on the loud pedal a little bit early, but I think he mistimed that potentially. Checks himself up before they get onto the start-finish straightaway. Eyes on to the flag man right now as the lights goes out, and there goes the flag. Remember, they've got to wait to the line, and there we get racing here at Sebring. It looks to be a pretty decent start there for Sean Campbell. He's going to start to get on the loud pedal and clearly pull himself in front. Harry Wills try to challenge a little bit on Ouellette as they go down through the first corner, and it looks like Wills is going to be able to hold that out if he can keep all four tires on the black stuff, and indeed he can. But what's going on back farther in the field?
Well, it looks like Venkatarajan is going to be in control, and what a start that was. He's got car lengths after car length there on the start for Venkatarajan. Very good start indeed. It looks like mostly guys staying in the position that they started in. In the background, Daniel Florea goes a bit wide, but other than that, it was a very clean start indeed. And good to see in both the Pro and Am fields, we've had very clean starts here in the first race of the evening. It looks as well, there's plenty of battling going on, but yeah, Jonathan Ouellette losing places as well, but no incident, fortunately. And that's what we like to see. But yeah, these drivers tend to lead it a very long time on that straight before getting a really nice run, and we saw that with Venkatarajan in the background. We've seen it with Sean Campbell in the pros as well.
Yes, we have, as Ouellette down 2 positions, but able to stop some of the bleeding, rather, as they work their way up through the corner. We now focus on Jonathan Ouellette, who's trying to get up behind here, Kai DL, as they work their way out of the tower turn, getting onto the Flying Fortress straightaway. DL is doing well to hold on. A little bit of side-by-side there in the back. That's R.A.W.S and Jeremy Littleton dicing it up a little bit with the BMW there of R.A.W.S trying to close in behind. Careful, little bit of front-to-back contact.
Very close indeed. It's always very difficult to go side by side through turn 14 like that and really keep it clean. But it is manageable as Kai DL has gotten through on Jonathan Ouellette on this start as well. It's more like Ouellette trying to make up the position that he lost on the start. He qualified second, but dropped as far as fifth there in that opening lap. Now he's back up to third at least, but he's given the rest of the field, or he's given Campbell and Wills at least a 2-second head start.
Yeah, he certainly has, and here comes a little bit of a how you do there. That's Veteranju trying to see what he is able to do. Looking down through the order, has he had a little bit of a problem, or who's that fighting with him?
Looks like Casey Metzger alongside him at the moment, and it is indeed Metzger on the outside line, but doesn't really look like he's got the straight line speed here for now. Venkatarajan with the inside line should have this done, but he's got a really tight line on the way in. Metzger with a much better, a much more flowing one. He's going to easily take that on the outside line, so Venkatarajan down to second.
Brilliant stuff there from Casey Metzger. We didn't see that setup, but he certainly capitalized when he could. Could have been a little bit of a dip off into the grass there for Vetkaraju, and that could have been what sent him around, but he will be looking to try to fight back here. The gap between them only about 0.4 of a second now as they fly out of Gurney Bend and back around through the other parts of this track. A little bit further back in that Anfield, here is Eric Kulaga as they go down into the braking zone for the hairpin. Maybe a little bit of contact there potentially between, I think that could have been James Hebb and Andrew Hewson, but it looks like it was nothing to write home about.
It doesn't look like there was too much of an incident between them. Fabian Potts is certainly just holding everybody back at the moment. He's on the defensive, definitely, with Stephen Martinez just in behind. It looks like Casey Metzger, I'm afraid, is... well, I thought he disconnected entirely, but it just dipped out briefly. Hopefully he's back again.
He's back again, but running a little bit wide there on the exit of the corner, and that is going to give Shreyas a little bit of a chance to maybe try to overtake. He's looking around that tricky part that we talked about, coming back down through Jean de Vienne and Le Mans as they get their way through the left-hander right now, setting up for the long Omen straight. This is going to be a little bit of a narrower line there for Vetkaraju, trying to see if he's going to be able to carry some speed here. This is going to be Mercedes versus Mercedes, but who's got the straight line grunt? It does look like Shreyas is starting to close down a little bit. Closing. He's going to poke his nose to the inside, but again, that momentum line around the outside of Sunset going to play out for Casey Metzger.
On the inside line there, going into Sunset Bend, really just narrow off as well. You've got to be very careful you don't hit that wall that sticks out a little bit for you. So you do have to be very careful of that as the two Kulagas are fighting it with Hewson trying to go through the middle of them. That'll be brave indeed, but and he might well do it here in the BMW. Right round the outside for Hewson into turn one. Well, I didn't think he was going to be able to do that, but in the end, it looks like Kulaga with a slightly worse run off of the corner has had to give up the place. So Hewson straight up to 7th from 9th.
Yeah, straight up there, and a great move. Here is Dean Timms in a little bit of a battle right now with Dan Tenorio as they work their way out of the hairpin and up towards Cunningham Corner, trying to see what they are going to be able to do. A little bit of a look to the inside there for Tenorio as they dive down into the corner. Tim's taking more of a defensive line there through the right-hander of Tower. I'm not sure if that's going to work for, excuse me, that was Cunningham that went through right there. Not sure if that's going to play out. It's still a little bit of almost side-by-side. Tenorio not letting this one go.
No, and you wouldn't expect so in a race like this, in a race of this length. They're just going to fight it out, all out from start to finish, really. And they are in the AM category as well. You get the feeling that Venkatarajan really does need to win this race. He needs to start closing in terms of points, in terms of that AM championship. I do think it's slightly, relatively unlikely that we're going to see Delano actually seal the championship today, even though it is very possible. However, I do think that Venkatarajan is going to have a very difficult job in his hands, really turning the tide on Delano throughout this race. For example, at the moment, despite the difference between them, he's only gaining 7 points, and when your deficit's nearly 50, it is very difficult to really gain too much.
Yeah, it certainly is. As we look out the back there of Eric Kulaga, James Head there in the Lamborghini, giving that rear view camera a big view of that Lamborghini's front end, as now it's going to be a drag race down into sunset. That Lambo on the inside line, as you said earlier there, Ewan, it does pinch off a little bit, but it looks like Heb's going to be able to keep the momentum going and a little bit off to the outside, and that's Jonathan Roulette with a problem up front.
Well, qualified second, but it's all falling apart. He's gone right to the back of the field now. After all of this, he's just got the wheels on the grass going on the way in, and he hits the wall quite hard as well. Turn 3, we saw Thomas Reiter do this towards the end of race 2 in the EU Championship. Actually, it ended up finishing his car completely from that race, so you could say Roulette got quite lucky there that he's gotten away with minimal damage.
Very late on the binders. There was Jeremy Littleton coming down into the hairpin as we see Matthew Plaisance being able to send a move on Casey right now, getting that move done in the battle of the Ferraris. Let's go ahead and check out a look here. This is Matthew Plaisance. This is what set it up, and this is what can happen if you don't get that first corner right. You run a little bit wide, and that slows you down.
Yes, there's a slightly weird thing with turn 1. Oh, it's off the road. Littleton into the wall quite fairly heavily. Oh, Collier there, and there's no front end on that car anymore, so he'll be having to get his way back to the pit lane, and there'll be some repairs on that Lamborghini. Just gets thrown off slightly by the slower BMW in front and gets onto the grass on the outside, and that's going to be it for him now.
Yeah, that's going to be it for him, and he is going to try to limp around here as he needs to try to finish as much of this race as possible to maybe take advantage of that reverse grid for race 2. But we focus here on Chase Wilson trying to close down a little bit on Dan Tenorio directly up ahead of him. BMW versus Mercedes right now. It does look like Wilson has a little bit of the legs here in a straight line, and that's kind of been one of the stories that we've seen over the course of the year, that Mercedes looking very slippery.
Yeah, we've seen it very strong, really, over the course of the year as well, especially in iRacing as a whole. The new Mercedes has been very strong indeed. I know the RSR drivers, particularly in the World Series leagues, have been selecting the Lamborghini, and that's slightly put the Lamborghini stock higher, I guess, because obviously Campbell and Alex Urenga as well, who's won the EU Championship, is very strong as well. But the Mercedes has been very good indeed. You're going to see John Casey just going for a simple spin really on the way into Le Mans. That's not going to be the last time we see that kind of thing going on tonight. But yeah, the new Mercedes has been very strong indeed, and in seasons to come it will continue to win races and maybe even championships as well. So with the Evo version, I think it's basically been stopped in its tracks by the fact that Alex Urenga and Sean Campbell have selected a different car, and that's really the only thing that's been stopping them from winning titles so far.
Oh, you are right. As there, it looks like Andrew Rasmussen and I believe that was Jeff Carollo there having a little bit of off. The Porsche and the Lamborghini driver, that's going to be on the back half of the circuit there. Looks like that Porsche is able to come through. Is that some contact going down through turn 2? Yes, it was, sending both drivers out into the grass that lines this Sebring circuit.
Hard to see whether... Oh, it's off the road for Andrew Hewitt as well, but... hard to see there whether the car on the inside there stuck the nose in when it wasn't really on, or whether just wasn't given any room at all. But either way, it's not ended too well for either of them, and both gone around way nearly outside the top 20 in this race, which is really far down. As Jonathan Roulette now trying to make up for some of his earlier mistakes, even with a slightly disjointed rear wing, as you can see in some of these camera shots. He still seems to be going pretty quickly.
Still seems to be going pretty quickly and putting a lot of pressure there onto the back of Chase Wilson. This is the battle for 6th in Pro and 6th overall right now. It's just as quick as you like. We are already 10 minutes down in this 25-minute race. We're going to jump back here to focus on the AM battle right now, because Metzger and Vetkanraju still just millimeters apart.
Yeah, not far apart at all here in this race right now. So close to the back going towards turn 1. He's got nearly 15 minutes, of course, to figure this one out at the moment, so he doesn't have to worry about making the move just this second, but he will have to eventually, especially because Stephen Martinez has got through actually into 3rd place there. That might put a bit of pressure on them, but to be fair, the two of them have gotten away from the rest of the field, much like these two have in the pro field.
Yeah, Sean Campbell continuing to lead from Harry Wills, a battle that we have commented on many, many times over the course of this season. We're going to take a look back here. Dean Timms trying to get a little bit of a move right now on Kai DL, coming down now into Cunningham as they work their way through the corner. Can't quite get it there. Twitch of oversteer there for Dean Timms. Lucky that he was able to keep that car back up underneath him.
Dean Timms has been closing on Kai DL in the last few laps, and it's turned from a battle for fourth to a battle for third, with Jonathan Roulette going off the road a few laps ago. So that's just heightened the tensions between those two just a little bit, as Campbell and Wills once again 1 and 2, as they have been so often in this championship so far. Campbell could well seal the title here today at this race without even needing to go today, Toner. But let's wait and see. Wills is going to push him all the way, I'm sure.
Yes, he is, and I think for Harry Wills, he's just got to try to keep that car on the black stuff. His big detriment over the course of this year has really been just some self-forced errors. They're almost having one on the exit of Sunset, kicking up around to the outside, but here comes Dean Timms, Wills' teammate, down to the inside of Kai DL, going down through that same Sunset corner. He's able to get the move done, but the question here is Kai DL going to be able to fight back coming down into turn 1? DL is going to think about it, but he's going to stay in line through the left-hander.
I think it's going to be unlikely for DL to really fight back from this point, really, because he's been so often just being reeled in more and more. Dean Timms seems to be only getting stronger as this race goes on, and Kai DL not getting any faster, I'm afraid, as further behind. Braden Melling making up a position on Fabian Ponce there, who ever since the start of this race has been falling backwards. Justin Delano is going to be next to maybe get a position.
Yeah, and I think there part of that issue was the fact that Ponce had a little bit of an off, kind of like we saw Dean Timms almost have there coming out of Sunset. If you just get onto the throttle a little bit early, specifically in the BMWs or the Mercedes that tend to have a little bit of ingrained understeer in those cars, you get onto the throttle a bit early and the car will want to understeer off wide. But it looks like here that Ponce may have a little bit of a fight back. He's going to dive down to the inside there of Braden Melling, going down to the hairpin. He's going to have to clobber over the curbs, not able to get the move done, but Melling certainly knows he's there. But look out now, here comes Justin Delano.
And this is not a surprise. Ponce has been falling through the field, Delano's been moving through it, and so Delano should be into the top 5 very soon. Outside line into Cunningham, though, is going to be hard. Ponce makes sure that he's not going to have an easy time by braking late, but gets up on that curb, gets unsettled, and Justin Delano is up to 5th place.
Yes, he is. Looking like an attempt at a fight back there for Fabian Ponce, but he's got more to worry about from behind him, as that is going to be Andrew Hewson and James Hebb into the BMW and Lamborghini behind them. A good little battle starting to shape itself out. Careful about that one. That could play out a little bit wrong there for James Hebb, but he's able to keep everything up and underneath him as they now work their way through Jean Debienne, lining up for Le Mans, and here comes the draft train. Who's able to get the best exit?
Well, it's going to be difficult. Let's see who's going to get in the inside at Sunset Bend. If anybody, it's going to be hard, as I mentioned, because it's difficult to overtake around here. We've seen a little bit less of that difficulty actually in the US Championship than what we saw in the EU, but there's still chances as contact made, and Fabian Ponce is going to lose out on more places.
Yes, he is, just getting it all wrong there on the outside, and we're ready for 3 wide. Coming across the start-finish line is that's going to be Eric Kulaga taking advantage, and I think that's Jeremy Littleton coming down pit lane there. Not sure what that issue was. Andrew Hewson trying to be able to hold in a little bit behind and maybe get a move on Ponce, and we are getting news there that Littleton did have a little bit of contact earlier on, and that's what brought him in.
Yeah, he certainly did. He had a big bit of contact with the wall. We saw it on replay a few moments ago, and it was unsurprising actually that he had to come in. I'm surprised that he didn't come in immediately. Now finally has surrendered to the inevitable there, and with no fast repairs, he's going to struggle to get back into the race. Although he has completed more than half distance, he will get the points and he will benefit from the reverse grid. So that's maybe why he waited so long.
Yeah, could be indeed. As we focus back on the battle right now, 4P4 in the pro category. Kai DL holding off Dan Tenorio here. Remember, Dean Tim's able to send that move down to the inside of DL, going down into Sunset. And it looks here a little bit like the ERS by Skyline Designs driver is just losing time. It doesn't look like he necessarily has the match of this Sebring circuit, and he is just starting to hemorrhage positions.
Looks like it. See into turn into the final turn for Kai DL. It is a bit weird to see him qualify so much better than he is racing at the moment, because he is a strong driver and should be finishing inside the top 5, challenging for that top 3 position at the moment, but just seems to be not able to do that. And Tenorio seems much stronger at this moment in time, but won't be able to actually get through just for now. Yeah, it's slightly strange how DL is falling behind in pace.
Yeah, a little bit weird here. We're used to seeing him a little bit further up in the field, but Tenorio applying that pressure. Meanwhile, up at the front of the field, here comes R.A.W.S coming up behind Sean Campbell right now, trying to put some pressure to the back of that Lamborghini. And this is really one of the better runs here that we've seen for R.A.W.S. He is really, really keeping up the pace.
He is. This is the best run we've seen from him in a little while now. Although I just feel like we've been saying that fairly regularly recently. He was second in race 1 at the Nürburgring. He was third the week before that as well. So he's been having a decent run of races, but certainly get what you mean. He's staying a lot closer to Campbell than he has done in previous weeks.
Yes, he has. Is there Dan Tenorio trying to muscle his way by Kai DL on the back half of the circuit, but DL, not to be denied, is going to keep it down to the inside there, going down through the right-hander, but they're still going to be in a bit of a drag race as they come off of the tower turn, now flying down the Flying Fortress straight. They've got to be very, very careful, and it looks like Tenorio is going to be able to hold it out.
He did make quite hard work of it. DL fought him hard for it, but they've both lost time as a result. Jonathan R.A.W.S has gotten right onto the back of them as well. DL's had a nicer line through Le Mans there and might be able to have a go of his own into the final corner. Not really thinking about the fact R.A.W.S has joined them for a free car train here. He wants that 4th place back immediately, and he might get it.
He might get it indeed. He's going to look down to the inside here as they go. DL trying to take that inside line through Sebring. Oh. Careful not to wash up there, and that's going to set up 3 wide on the exit of the corner.
DL just understeered so much towards Dan Tenorio there, and it's allowed Jonathan R.A.W.S to maybe take both of them. Oh my word, that was a squeeze as well. R.A.W.S right on the outside line. Oh, and there's contact. DL understeers again. This time it's into the side of R.A.W.S, who goes around for the 2nd time this race.
Goodness gracious, you hate to see such a fantastic battle like that come to blows. And there we check out the replay, and you called it perfectly. Kai DL just understeering ever so slightly down into turn 1, and that slid him off into the side.
I think it's also when you're on the inside line like that, your turning points and your bearings are all different when you're going towards turn 1 on a different line like that. So I don't think he quite realised that he'd missed his turning point quite so heavily there at Kai DL. So he just ended up straight into the side of R.A.W.S, and he'll feel pretty bad about that. But I do think he's going to. There's something going to be said about this one. This one here is a lot more understandable. There's only so much steering you can put into your car. He gets pretty close to the wall, as everyone does, but then it's just not turning here at this point. Can't really blame DL too much for that. Plus, he didn't force anybody off the road, so he didn't really do anything wrong at all. However, in towards turn number 1, there was a lot more going wrong. You're about to see here, he's on a different line on the way towards turn number 1, and it's very off-putting. You can miss your turning point, your braking point so easily, and you saw the 2 Mercedes in front of him there were on the brakes well before he was, and so that was only really going to end one way. It was unfortunate, especially for R.A.W.S, who really felt the full effects of that.
Yeah, and I think R.A.W.S just had a little bit of an off, as I just saw him lose positions to the top 2 in the AM category as well. So something clearly not exactly handling as well as he would like in that car. But the battles continue on here. Yeah, the car's broken. There's something wrong in that car for R.A.W.S.
It definitely is. There's no doubt about that. And he'll be into the pit lane at the end of this lap. I think he'll know he can finish in 8th place very comfortably here. And he will benefit from the reverse grid as well, so no shame in him coming into the pit lane now.
As we watch back a replay here of Andrew Hewson coming through turn 2. Little bit too much speed, and that's going to send that BMW right around. Good avoidance there, and unfortunately the KCR BMW there not as lucky to get around and on by. But we get back here. This is another replay. Matthew Plaisance trying to come through the back half of the circuit. A driver off in front of him. A little bit of target fixation there, I have to say.
Well, there was an awful lot going on in front of him there, and that might just distracted him going towards Le Mans. And well, I'm not going to rule it out anyway. Yeah, shame. But just a simple, quick spin there, really, as Braden Melling tries to make his way through. And Stephen Martinez, Melling needs a big day today to keep the championship alive for him. Venkatarajan needs a fairly sizable day himself to keep this championship alive. But Delano's just lost a place to James Sebb, so things are looking slightly better in his favour at the moment. Still only, though, a 7-point gain for Venkatarajan on a day where he does need a little bit more. Started the day at 47 points behind. This will bring it to 40 points behind with this move right here for James Hebb.
Yeah, good, a simple pass there going down into turn 1, and we keep our eyes focused here on Braden Melling coming up behind Stephen Martinez right now there in that Ferrari. Melling just trying to apply as much pressure as possible, and hearing there from our director that Kai DL has had another issue, so clearly that car not having the best day, having some problems out on track, and that appears to be Fabian Ponce off there through the back half of the circuit.
Such a good qualifying for Ponce to get third. In the end, it's really fallen apart for him in this race. Fallen apart a little bit for Kai DL as well. We saw his incident not so long ago, and that's too late on the brakes. You could see that coming from a mile off, and had to take a quick trip across the grass to get back on again, but he'll hold on to 7th at least. Now Fabian Ponce might not be to blame for his particular incident, because he was in a battle with another car. In the end, it was just a bit of a spin on his own, really.
Yeah, it looked like there he may have spun the tires a little bit coming down through the hairpin, and then that just caused him to get a little bit squirrely and bring it around. But we focus back in on the battle between Martinez and Melling right now. This is the battle for the final podium position in the AM category. Look to the inside there for Braden, trying to see if he's going to be able to get anything, but Martinez recognizes that move and stops him from doing anything. Now, I'm looking at the drivers, the leaders on track, and I believe we are at 2 laps to go.
13 laps should be the distance for this first race, so we are about to see the white flag when we get to the line, which is fairly shortly for the pro leaders anyway. For the AM leaders, there's very much a battle going on. Venkatarajan has been taking his time in this race, really. He's been just running his own race, and now he's applying the pressure to Metzger. He needs every point he can get today, does Venkatarajan, and so this position matters, and he's going to go down the inside.
Banging doors as they come down into the hairpin, and Shreyas, I think, backing off there just a little bit of sportsmanship there, but the battle's still continuing on, and Venkatarajan able to get the move done by the time they get up into Cunningham Corner, but runs a little bit wide, and that's going to open up the door for Casey Metzger to fight back.
He's going to get straight back through. It was a mistake, really, from the Venkatarajan there to let that happen again. But it was an aggressive move into Cunningham there to try and make his way through the inside. It was aggressive, but I wouldn't say he did anything outside of the rules, per se. He just made an aggressive move. He's going to have to do that again, though, if he wants to take this win off of Casey Metzger, because, while Metzger doesn't have a title to fight for, he will want this race win.
Yeah, he certainly will, but you can see there Shreyas really closing up behind. The question is he going to try to poke his nose to the outside? No, he's going to carry a little bit more momentum there on that outside line, trying to see what he can do. Closes up a little bit on the exit of Sunset. White flag in the air from Barney the Flagman. Only one more lap to decide who will take this AM class victory. And here comes Venkatarajan down to the inside right now, trying to see if he's going to be able to do it, but a little bit of a pinch there from Metzger is going to block any momentum.
Certainly is, and he's going to have to wait once more. I don't think turn 1's the best opportunity for him. I think he's better off waiting for a different place in the order, or a different place on the circuit to try and make his way through, as we've got another replay here, embarking on the final lap. Not too far from the finish now for the pro drivers, but I'm afraid Fabian Ponce has not had a good day.
No, he really hasn't. That is a day going from bad to worse there for Fabian. Hate to see that there for him. But as we continue to look our way back up at the front of the field, Sean Campbell leading by about 0.6 of a second over Harry Wills. This is a good result here from Harry to be able to keep up close behind him. But I've got to say, he just needed that maybe a couple more laps to be able to get this in on Sean.
Yeah, I think so. But I feel like as this race is going on, Harry Wills is only getting slower on the circuit at the moment. Sean Campbell seems to be going at a constant pace, and nobody else seems to be able to match him. Not in this season, not in this race either.
No, certainly not, as they work their way out of the final corner right now, just tickling over on the grass, checkered flag in the air, and Sean Campbell will take victory here at Sebring for race 1. Harry Wills following very close behind him.
Yeah, and Dean Timms is going to round off a nice podium as well. We see if Casey Metzger can hold on for the AM win as well here, and there is a bit of a bigger gap than what we saw one lap ago. There was a lot going on between the two on the penultimate lap, but in the end, Venkatarasu not able to get through, and he'll have to settle for just a 7-point gain on Delano. It is pretty good for him, but he still needs to gain some more to keep this alive going towards Daytona.
Yeah, he certainly does, and we'll have to see how that plays out. Looking back there is the man that we mentioned, Justin Delano, and who is that going slowly? That was James Hebb going slowly, so that 7 points is going to get diminished even further as the ERSY Skyline Designs driver is able to get by Hebb. I think Hebb's out of fuel.
Yeah, I think he's run out of fuel, which is really almost inexcusable in a race like this when you know almost exactly how many laps it's going to be. There's no pit stops to make, and it's a very bizarre situation. Unless some fuel calculating software has told him wrong, which is not unheard of, then Hebb will be really disappointed with himself to have run out of fuel in this race, and yeah, it has cost him a couple of places.
Yeah, it certainly has, and that is going to bring us here to the conclusion of race 1 as we wait for the last couple of drivers here to cross over the line. We'll run you through those final finishing order, then we're going to take a quick break away as we always do, and then we'll be back for the feature race here today. And folks, you are not going to want to miss that, a full 50-minute feature from Sebring featuring pit stops out on track. As there you can see John Casey crossing over the line right now, and that should be able to give us here our final finishing order. Up in that pro category, it was Sean Campbell over Harry Wills, but only by about 0.5 of a second. Dean Timms able to come home in P3, followed by Dan Tenorio, with Chase Wilson and R.A.W.S in 6th. Kai DL a little bit surprising all the way down in 7th, and Ouellette and Littleton both having some troubles on the day.
That was another battle for the win, of course, in between Casey Metzger and Shares Venkatarasu. In the end, Metzger went out by 0.5 of a second as well. Stephen Martinez held off Braden Melling for third. Justin Delano got a top 5 as championship leader, with Eric Kulaga getting ahead of James Hebb, who ran out of fuel towards the end of that race. Michael Kulaga and Vito Brass couldn't quite get there. Drew Neuber rounded out the top 10. Jeff Carollo was nearly 30 seconds back with Andrew Rasmussen. Then Daniel Fleuret, Matthew Plaisance, Charles Busso, Andrew Hewitt and John Casey all on the lead lap. Eric Blumenkrantz ended that race at 1 lap down. We did see Fabian Ponce, Andrew Houston also both not seeing the checkered flag there in that race. But all of the drivers who started the first race will be benefiting from a reverse grid race, which is coming up soon.
Yes, it is, and that'll be coming up in just a few minutes' time here, so we are going to take that quick break away here for everyone. We will be back in a few moments' time to bring you that full feature race, so until then, stay tuned, and we'll be back.
London, Brooklyn, London, Brooklyn, Atlanta, London, Harlem, Brooklyn, Kingston, Atlanta, London, Harlem, Brooklyn, Kingston, Atlanta, London, Harlem, Brooklyn, Kingston, Atlanta. London, Harlem, Brooklyn, Kingston, Atlanta.
Welcome back to Sebring International Raceway. My name is DJ Clark, joined here in the commentary booth by Ewan O'Leary with our director and producer David Christie behind the scenes for our second race from this historic Florida venue here tonight. And Ewan, that first race provided plenty of good racing out on the track, and I've got no reason to believe that this second race won't do the exact same.
Yeah, it's a reverse grid race, so that always does add a little extra layer to things. It's fair to say. So that will keep things interesting. But yeah, I was really impressed with race one. Actually, it was a very good race in the end, especially considering what we saw in the EU Championship, which was a little bit more single file in terms of overtaking, especially. But we didn't really have too much of that throughout the US race through race one. And yeah, the reverse grid race always is exciting anyway, so it should be a good one.
It should be indeed, but before we get to that racing action, we've got about a minute and a half left to go in practice. Let's go ahead and run you through the championship standings. After that round, Sean Campbell is going to still be on top with 644 points. Harry Wills behind him, extending his gap over Jonathan Roulette. Then behind them, Dean Tims, Daniel Tenorio, R.A.W.S, Chase Wilson, Kyle Boss, Jeremy Littleton, and Dave Menino rounding out your top 10. The AM standings get a little bit more interesting, though, as Shreyas Venkatrataju, there we go, is able to close down just a little bit more. 41 points now, separating himself from Justin Delano with 3 rounds of racing left to go. That is going to be all to do here for Shreyas to try to be able to close on in. Braden Maling still holding on to third place there over Casey Metzger, James Hebb, and Jeff Carollo in a very, very close fight. Fabian Ponce losing a little bit of ground, and Daniel Florea trying to be able to close in behind with Michael Fowler looking in and Matthew Plaisance rounding out your top 10. Well, the reverse grid race here tonight, Ewan, that always, as you said, changes things around a little bit. And what's your strategy on this circuit? Are you going to be going for broke, trying to get those passes and those positions done early on, or are you going to wait a little bit and let the race come to you?
It often is the strategy in these reverse grid races, starting at the back to make up as much as you can through the opening lap. I know Sean Campbell's very good at that in the pro field particularly, but at Sebring you can't really, because of the way it's so narrow on the run towards turn 3, the first real braking zone of the circuit. is just very narrow and you can't really go anywhere, so it's going to be very difficult to make up so many places early on. So you've got almost no choice other than to wait a little bit and let the race come to you, as you say. So I mean, these guys might not be left with much choice really. With the way this circuit is, it's hard to do it all at once.
It certainly is, as there we have our starting grid as the drivers start to populate on the race grid here. Jeremy Littleton going to be starting off in pole position, followed by Jonathan Roulette, Ariel Rexoy, and Chase Wilson behind them. Dan Tenorio and Dean Timms going to be in row 3, and then row 4 is the one to be talking about, Harry Wills and your championship leader, Sean Campbell.
In the AM category, Andy Houston's going to go from right from the back in race 1 to the front here for race 2. Fabian Ponce alongside him. He is quick, but needs to stay on the road a little bit more than he did in the first race. Eric Blumenkrantz will be third alongside John Casey. Those two sharing the second row together, with Andrew Hewitt running out the top 5. Charles Boschel 6th and Andrew Place on 7th. The McLaren of Daniel Flore in 8th place out of Andrew Rasmussen and Jeff Carollo running up the top 10. Drew Neubauer 11th out of Vito Brass, who got a top 10 despite starting last in race 1. Michael Kulaga will be 13th out of James Hebb, who ran out of fuel at the end of that last race. Eric Kulaga just behind the other Kulaga in 15th. Justin Delano, championship leader, will be starting from 16th position, and he is ahead of Braden Melling, Stephen Martinez, Shez Venkatarasu and Casey Metzger running up the 20-car Anfield.
Right, so that is going to be here what we lead ourselves around to. And we saw the outright pace from some of the Mercedes earlier on. Is that going to play out once again? I also think particularly of interesting to note here is going to be up the front of the field. Looking in the AM category, Fabian Ponce had a little bit of a scruffy race that first time out, but we've seen Fabian have some great speed earlier on in the season. That is a BMW that I'm going to be looking at to maybe be able to push its way ahead a little bit more and have a good race here, maybe be able to take home victory.
Well, yeah, let's see. Really, I think it's difficult to really define this by manufacturer and say who's going to win, really, because the spread of the talent is so even in terms of who's picked what. We've got, you know, in this pro field, Lamborghini, Mercedes, and BMW, all with a shot at winning. In the AM, we've got even more the manufacturers winning, with a shot at winning. So I don't think we can put it down to that, really. It is going to be the individual drivers putting on a performance once again, but it is difficult to see Sean Campbell really not performing well here in this race, certainly. And he doesn't need to do all that much more to win the championship from here either. He's got 63 points of an advantage at the moment. If he comes out of this race here right now with a 59-point advantage, then he can be crowned champion. So Harry Wills just needs to beat him in this race.
Yeah, and that's going to be something that we keep our eye on over the course of this race running. Also keeping our eye at the back of that AM field with Shreyas Vetkaranju and Casey Metzger to see how those two are going to play themselves out. Justin Delano, as that is the battle for first in that AM category. As the pro field now makes its way through Tower Turn and on to Flying Fortress straightaway, weaving back and forth a little bit here, trying to get everything up and underneath them, as it is 76 degrees Fahrenheit, a little bit chilly around here in Florida.
A little bit colder than you otherwise might expect, especially at this time of year, or any time of year, I suppose. But yeah, it is. It's not going to affect these guys too much, you wouldn't imagine. It's very overcast here by the looks of it, and it's not going to affect them too much. If anything, it's going to help, because in our racing, the track being too cold is not really a thing. The colder the better, really. So it can only help the drivers, really, and only increase the pace.
Yeah, exactly. As now they work their way onto the Ullman Straight, waiting to see here if they're going to be able to get themselves moving here. A little bit of weaving back and forth there from Roulette, just waiting to get around sunset for the green flag to fly.
Yeah, not long to go. And we'll see how long they leave it again, because we see time after time these drivers leave it such a long time to go finally on the straight. So it's going to be, I think, running to the previous 3 races we've had tonight, I think it's going to be well after the finish line before we actually see anybody really going for it.
Oh, Right, well, drivers now getting on to the start-finish straightaway right now. Green flag in the air, and they have to wait for that checkered flag line, and there they go. Littleton on the loud pedal, and we are racing in Sebring. He starts to get away there, but Ouellette going to be able to hold him pretty closely. Wow, that was a very, very late start, as there they all start to scatter away, trying to be able to get everything down and together, but it looks like it's relatively calm here for the pro category.
Yeah, a little bit easier to manage for these guys in this field because it is a bit smaller, but that doesn't mean that Sean Campbell's not going to be trying to make up places on the inside of Dean Timms already, as Houston not waiting quite as long in the Anfield here to get away. That might help a little bit, actually, just to string the field out, although it's very, very close and dangerous in the midfield pack. Thankfully, oh, well, everybody's gotten through, although there was a Lamborghini hard into the wall off of turn 1.
Yes, there was. I believe that may have been Victor Bros there, as that is, yes, indeed, it is the Iberian driver, and some pretty heavy damage to the front end of that Olympus Esports Lamborghini. But we check back in on the front of the pro field. Ouellette leading the way here, starting to drop Littleton just a little bit. The gap expanding up to about 0.6 of a second.
You can see in the background, it's so hard for any of the drivers to make progress on the opening lap. The top 3 more or less the same. Sean Campbell trying to gain places. Dean Timms has lost 2 now after getting shunted off there a little bit, and Sean Campbell feels quite bad about it, and so he will let Timms through, but it's allowed the other 6 to get away drastically from these 2.
A flash of the headlights there as they come around to the corners, and now Campbell is going to be in attack mode, trying to come up behind Dean Timms. Good sportsmanship there among the 2 competitors. Well, we've got to take a look back here in the AM class, because it is an absolute gaggle of cars flying their way out of the tower turn right now. A couple of drivers going too wide there as they brought their way through, everyone trying to sort themselves out.
Yeah, this is the problem for all of the drivers further down the back. You can see Delano in there, just outside the top 10 for now. He's ahead of Venkataraju as well as he started this race. They've both made up 2 and 4 places respectively, but it's not as much as you would expect at a different circuit, at a more wide open circuit like Monza or Nürburgring in the previous 2 weeks, where you can make up positions on the opening lap. It's a lot harder down here at Sebring because it's just so narrow towards turn 3, as we just see there.
Oh, and that's a BMW getting it very wrong through Sunset. I believe that was Blumenkrantz as he is plummeting down through the order. It looks like James Head had to take a little bit of avoiding action, and that lost him a couple of positions. But here is Matthew Plaisance trying to hold out over his fellow Ferrari driver. Right now, Andrew Hewitt up the road from them. Casey going to be able to get that move. They're going to be side by side. The Porsche there behind is Andrew Rasmussen and Daniel Florea. Everybody trying to be able to pick up pieces as we've got even more action, and that's a spin around there. That's going to be Wilson and Urexoy, I believe.
Yeah, it didn't look like Urexoy gave enough room to Wilson, who he was side by side with on the exit of the hairpin there. And this is messy as well. Drew Neubauer ends up off the road. Venkataraju has found himself ahead of Justin Delano all of a sudden, but they're still outside the top 10. To be fair to them, they are making better progress than some of the AM leaders did in the EU Championship a few hours ago, but it's still not fantastic, as Venkataraju does make his way through. Delano here seems to be in survival mode more than anything.
Yeah, I think he is as well, and I think the way we've seen this race start to fire off here, that has got to be the best strategy, is just survive until you're able to run around in some clean air. Littleton right now, though, trying to hold off Dan Tenorio behind, but we've seen the grunt of that Mercedes. Lamborghini known for having a little bit better rotation through the corners, but the absolute grunt here of the number 71 should see it prevail. He's going to poke his nose down to the inside. The 2 Twisted Racing Team teammates are going to be in a drag race. Later onto the binders is Tenorio, and he sweeps on by, and that's also going to be Harry Wells coming on through.
That was very weird for Littleton there, actually, but Dean Timms just went for a simple spin on his own through Le Mans. We saw it in the background of the Ormond Straight, just a change of direction there, just losing it up through that, and I'm afraid it's not looking like a good race for the AM leader in the championship for the EUs, as we see side by side with Campbell and Urexoy. Campbell makes his way through around the outside. Now he's starting to make progress finally. And luckily for him, he's not found himself too far off the back of the rest of the field, as we see Venkataraju making his way through, along with Metzger now as well. These two almost following each other as they were in race 1.
Yeah, trying to be able to get themselves up there as the Audi of Kulaga. Going to be a little bit of a hindrance here to Casey Metzger. But Metzger's going to have to go around the outside of turn 1. He's going to have to be later on the binders, try to get that better angle. And it looks like the Audi just not able to carry up the speed as much as he would like to. So that's going to put him a little bit farther back down in the order. The next on the agenda there for him is going to be Justin Delano, who has started to come up behind him. We've got a little bit of side-by-side here up for second. That's Harry Wills able to get by Dan Tenorio. Tenorio thought about taking a little bit of a look to the inside, but here they go, trying to see what they can do. Andrew Hewitt now racing their way around, and this is going to be Florea, I believe. No, excuse me, it's Plaisance, and oh, that's Hewitt around.
Yeah, Hewitt around, just too eager to get the power down on the exit of the hairpin there, and that top 3, top 5 position is completely gone from him. He did recently get passed by Matthew Plaisance, but dropped it completely on the exit of the hairpin. He's dropped a whole load of other positions as well, and it's promoted everybody up another place here. And some of the guys who were up towards the front in race 1 getting very close to the front again, as that's off another driver off the road. I think that was Jeff Carollo who spun out of Tower Corner. It is indeed.
Yes, it was that GT3 Lamborghini having a little bit of a problem run there. He's going to be able to avoid the tire barriers on the left-hand side of the track, but here is James Hebb right now in the fellow Lamborghini, trying to be able to keep Shreyas Vetkaranju behind him as long as possible, but I don't know how long he's going to be able to do it. Casey Metzger also looking a little bit threatening. Got to give Hebb some credit there, though. That is a fantastic run out of Le Mans and is going to be able to keep that Mercedes at bay for now.
Will do. But you get the feeling it's not going to be for too much longer. To be fair to Hebb, he did well in the first race to climb through the order so much. He did start quite far back compared to where his pace should have had him in that qualifying order. However, I don't think he's going to be able to hold back Venkatarasu and Metzger here. They just seem to be on a different level to everybody else.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, and really, unless your name is Sean Campbell, we haven't seen that Lamborghini really have the outright pace to be able to keep up with that. But speaking of Sean Campbell trying to get by Chase Wilson right now, little bit of a gutsy send there down into the right-hander, and that is going to be through Cunningham and able to make that work. That's not normally an area you see a pass done, but Sean Campbell feels good about it. Here comes Andrew Rasmussen, though, trying to hold off and trying to get by Daniel Florea, rather, and he's going to think better of it going into the hairpin.
Probably a better idea as well if you're not sure about it to not go for it. But then again, when are you going to get an opportunity against this McLaren that is so strong in a straight line? Rasmussen has got a nice run out the hairpin though to have another look, but seems very tentative. Really doesn't want to cause an incident more than anything else, but if he wants to make the move, he's going to have to be a little bit more decisive and a little bit more deeper under brakes as well to really put pressure on Florea and then eventually make the move. But he's not going to do it just being tentative like he is at the moment.
No, he's got to have a little bit more aggression. He's really got to try to put himself into that position and maybe force Florea off online. And he's got to get a move on here because Shreyas is starting to come up behind him now, and he does not want to have that big Mercedes coming up behind. Let's not forget James Hebb is also coming up behind as well. So I'm getting the sense here that Andrew Rasmussen is being held up a little bit. Little bit of Lamborghini on Lamborghini action, though, as that's going to be Sean Campbell chucking it down to the inside, coming through turn 1, and Campbell up into P4.
He is through nicely, and so he's going to continue on the march and try and get towards Dan Tenorio now in this race, and I think he will be able to. As Venkatarasu on the defensive again from Metzger, Florea on the defensive once again as well. At the moment, just in the McLaren, you can see Metzger on the outside line into turn number 1, and he does look stronger than the championship contenders. Side by side, they both throw it in, but on the outside line, Casey Metzger looks like he's going to get that place.
An impressive move there from Metzger, and look at this, Daniel Florea starting to fall down the order there a little bit, as that's going to be some side-by-side between himself and James Hebb, trying to see if he's going to be able to get anything done there. Hebb's going to carry a little bit more momentum around the outside, and that's going to force Florea off to the outside line there, and Metzger says, I'll take some of that, please. Able to move his way up on by, and let's see here if Shreyas Venkatarasu is going to be able to do this as well. Is that going to be 3 positions down in 2 corners here for Daniel Florea? It looks like it is.
It is indeed, and now Venkataraju's got the choice of lines as well. You can see where it's going for Hebb and for for Metzger up in front, and he can follow the driver who's got it at the moment as Metzger goes deep and the brakes too deep into Cunningham, and he loses out on all of those places.
Going wrong here for Casey Metzger, and that's going to find him falling down the order. Let's check out a replay here from on board, going down into Cunningham. As you said, Ewan just looks down to the inside, tries to brake a little bit too late, and the car just won't cooperate.
He just risked it all down towards turn 10 there, and I don't think he needed to. He didn't need to make such a dive like that. He didn't need to put the car so close to the limit there. He could have just waited a little bit longer for that move and then done it at the right time, because James is not exactly a slow driver. He's not exactly losing a load of time behind him, so yeah, didn't need to risk it all there at all, and Metzger's chances of a race win are now incredibly slim, even with 40 minutes to go. As Venkatarajan gets inside the top 5 now, even his chances of winning are quite small, really, because Houston and Ponce are getting away from the field dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, look at that gap. It's a whopping 10 seconds there up front between Ponce and Plaisance. It doesn't look like James Hebb is ready to give up on that battle quite yet. He's going to take a look to the outside of turn 1. We're going to think a little bit better of it, though. He's going to fall back into line. About 11 minutes down here in this 50-minute race. We do anticipate pit stops firing off at some point, as there we take a look up at the front of the field. These two BMWs leading the way in the AM category.
Yeah, they're kind of working together almost, as much as you can do, I suppose, by just not overtaking or battling with one another. And it's really helping the both of them to get away from the rest of the field. You can absolutely see why they would do it, and they are going to be difficult to catch now. It's not good news for Venkatarajan, because the gaps between points, between first and second and third, are 4 points, which is quite a lot. And so, if he's not able to get any of those top 2 positions, then he won't be able to gain quite as much as he wants to.
All right, as we watch here, Justin Delano working his way down here, trying to get by Daniel Florea. Ooh, that rear-wheel drive Porsche getting a little bit squarely there and almost stepping out on him and almost losing a position there to Kulaga, but good catch from Delano.
It was a good catch, but he should have been able to make that move really on the McLaren a little bit early. It just doesn't seem to quite have that pace here today compared to the likes of Venkatarajan, but then again, he has been in damage limitation mode really for the second half of this season. Really raced out to a nice points lead, and he's just been conserving pretty much since Monza onwards. Just conserving what he's got. No, very nearly lost it out of Le Mans as well there.
Very nearly losing it out. We check here on Andrew Rasmussen, able to get that move done there on Plaisance, going down into the final corner of Sunset Bend. Is that going to be able to keep everything together? Yes, it is. Farther back here. Here is Delano still trying to play a little bit of defense and offense at the same time. Ooh, good speed on the inside. That's going to put him right in line to take an attack here on Florea.
Well, he took a tight line there, but he got into the grass slightly as well, and so the run onto the front straight wasn't as good as it needed to be. And so Delano will stay behind again. He's got to be worried, though, about the likes of Kulaga and Martinez behind. If he gets really dragged into this group, then it could be a long evening for Delano. It's down the inside for Kulaga, who could be about to make Justin Delano's second race a very long one indeed. Side by side, Delano pushed out wide into the grass, and he is in trouble now.
Yes, he is trying to hold on to that to the best of his ability, but losing a position there as he goes, and that just goes to show you what can happen. A little bit of changing there up at the front of the field. Plaisance under attack right now from Rasmussen.
It looks like the two of them, yeah, still fighting it out, and it's allowed Venkatarajan to get involved now as well. Delano stopped the bleeding a little bit, you'd say, in that group, thankfully for him. But even so, it's not good news as Sean Campbell continues his march up the field.
Yes, indeed. He's now tucked behind Dan Tenorio right now, trying to see if he's going to be able to get that move done. Pokes his nose to the inside, going down the Ullman straight into Sunset. Oh, I didn't think he was going to be able to pull that off, but late enough on the binders to make that work. And there goes Campbell up into the podium positions.
Still marching towards the front of the field. It's a case of whether he can catch Harry Wills and Jonathan Lett here, and whether Wills can catch Lett as well. Dan Tenorio back down the inside of Campbell into turn 1 as well. That's not going to help the RSR driver, but now he's finally got the move done. Yeah, the top 3 are very, very strong drivers in their own right, and they're going to be difficult to catch one another.
Yes, they are, as we watch here, Rasmussen and some drivers working their way around. That is Rasmussen and Plaisance. Vetkadaraju holding on there behind. And don't count out James Hebb. We've seen some good power out of that Lamborghini as Vetkadaraju goes for a 2-for-1 down to the inside of Sunset. He's now trying to get the move done on Plaisance. He's going to have to go the long way around turn 1, but he's going to try to keep it out. That's Rasmussen thinking about taking the move. The Ferrari keeps the momentum, keeps the line, and Vetkadaraju's only going to have to settle for 1.
He had to be very careful on the entry to turn 1 there. He didn't commit as much as he otherwise might have because of the potential free wide moment. Rasmussen very nearly gave him a scare towards turn 3 as well by sticking his nose down the inside there. But in the end, it didn't really matter, and Venkatarazu is into 4th place. He should be able to get rid of Plaisance quite quickly and get off up the road now and get away from the danger in this group.
You certainly would have to think so as we take a look here up at the front of that AM field. Remember, 13 seconds separating Plaisance from these two, but this is starting to turn into a little bit of a battle between Andrew Hewson and Fabian Ponce.
Well, it's a battle, I suppose, in the literal sense, but in the physical sense, there's no side-by-side between the two, and I don't expect there to be for a good while yet. These two are just trying to get their distance from the rest of the field. You know, they've got enough, if they continue going single file like this, they've got enough of a gap to keep at bay the likes of Venkatarazu in the group behind. However, if they do start fighting for the over half an hour in this race, then they are going to get caught, so I don't expect them to do that just yet.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a little bit of heads up here, not wanting to battle, not wanting to give up any time. They know how much speed R.A.W.S has behind them, and they do not want to run the risk of sacrificing absolutely any of that back to him. So I've got to agree with her there, Ewan. Just run a little bit single file here, play well together, and see if that can help you get forward. We've got a little bit of more fighting going on here in the back. Plaisance and Hebb going side by side, and that's going to be Hebb around. Oh, is it?
He saved it.
Oh, my goodness! How did he do that?
Well, that was remarkable from Hebb to not go around. He has lost a plate, but at least he didn't go all the way around. Well, we were looking at that, by the way. Plaisance lost 2 places. That's how he ended up side by side with Hebb, who just seemed to lose it on the bumps here, lose it on his own, really. And yeah, it's quite remarkable how sideways he got there, but just locked up the car and got back going again.
That is absolutely remarkable. A 4-wheel drift coming through Sunset that didn't end in tears. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Massive, massive credit here to the Rhino Motorsports driver. Truly, truly remarkable. But we focus back here on a little bit of a battle. Oh, that's 2 cars off. That's Florea and one of the Ferraris. I believe that's Martinez.
It is, and these two are fighting, along with Delano as well, who's so lucky there. Goodness me. Championship leader Justin Delano very nearly got caught up in that. Unfortunately for Steven Martinez and Daniel Florea, they were the ones to get caught up in it, so they're going to have big damage and they're going to struggle to do anything in this race from here.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. They're really going to have it all to do here. We focus back in on a little bit of the calm up at the front of the field. Andrew Hewson and Fabian Ponce continuing to run 1-2 in that AM category with about 20 minutes down here in this race.
Still about half an hour to go. These two a long way from fighting at the moment as Casey Metzger tries to march through the field again. He's now through on Braden Merling, whose championship chances have faded here today. Delano's still 8th place at the moment. I think Metzger's going to dispatch of Delano before the end of this one. So we'll see really where the two contenders really end up. But as things stand, Venkatarazu is going to take this title fight all the way to Daytona.
Certainly is there he is going to be able to hold that out over Rasmussen, who tried to get a little bit feisty there, but not enough. Ooh, but Rasmussen's got some good speed coming out of Sunset. Could he maybe have a little bit of an attack here coming down the main straightaway? He certainly thinks he can. He's going to look to the outside, going down into turn 1. Turns in there. R.A.W.S right in front of him. Careful not to make contact and not to run out too wide. That was some good defense from Vetkadarazu.
Was a good defense. And in the end, he does hold on to 3rd place. I'm slightly surprised that Rasmussen's giving him such a hard time here. Not because I think that he shouldn't, but I think I didn't think he'd be capable. Down the inside now for Ponce. Does want to go through into the hairpin there, but in the end, couldn't really. And so maybe now the first signs of fighting between these top 2 drivers now starting to take shape. It's a little bit early, but that maybe they've decided that this margin that they have over the rest is enough.
Well, I mean, 13.3 seconds here at this point. That is a pretty healthy margin to be able to play with, and so might as well, if you're Fabian Ponce, try to put yourself forward a little bit and be able to get that going. So we'll have to see what he does here. Not a lot of chances, as we've said, to be able to make that overtake on the back half of this circuit. I'm going to be keeping my eye on him coming through Jean-Debienne, coming through Le Mans, trying to see if there is a chance to attack there.
Yeah, I think it's worth staying behind through here. Let's see into Sunset Bend, whether there's going to be a move. Well, it's not a great exit onto the Ullman Straight, so I don't think Ponce is going to be able to have a go on Houston. I think it is smart from Ponce, though, to stay behind Houston here, not only to keep extending the margin to those behind and kind of keep them out of the equation, but also because Ponce can save fuel on the back of that Houston car at the moment. He can have a shorter pit stop as well, and he doesn't even have to then make an overtake on the actual racetrack. So he kind of wins all ways round, but maybe he does want to do it on the road instead.
Yeah, that may be the way to do it, just for a little bit of glory, as it were. But we ride on board the hood here of Andrew Rasmussen, trying to see if he's going to be able to get anything down to the inside there of R.A.W.S. R.A.W.S. shutting the door once again, not letting him by. And despite these two battling a little bit, I will say they've been able to close in on the back of Fabian Ponce there to the tune of about a second or so over the past lap and a half.
And they've been closing in. This is also why Rasmussen should probably stay behind as well, because they could close in on the top two a little bit quicker, although I don't think Rasmussen will still be on the back of the Mercedes by the time that they get there, but he could well be. Side by side in the background, James Hebb trying to recover and get through on Matthew Plaisance, hopefully this time without a near-death spin. He's not going to be able to do it at all into the hairpin on this occasion. He'll wait to Cunningham.
Yeah, he'll have to wait a little bit as they run, trying to see here as he's going to size it up. Going down now into the corner. There comes the dive, but he's going to think better of it and fall back into line, not wanting to take too big of a move there on Plaisance. Able to get a better launch out of the corner. He's going to try to maybe keep this competitive, coming up through Collier and now into Tower. Down onto the binders goes the 77, but out around the outside goes the number 9.
Very cautious on the inside of Tower there to just give the room to the Ferrari on the outside, and it really did him in the end through Bishop. Outside line going to be difficult, and so he's going to have to stay behind. Once again, this is now costing them a lot of time, and Kulaga and Delano are not too far away, along with a load of others. Going to make sure to not get dragged into all that, as Rasmussen finally has now made his move after a mistake.
Yeah, forced a little bit of a mistake there from Venkaraju, and that is going to be enough to be able to get Rasmussen on by. The gap still holding steady in about 13 seconds up the road as they run, but that is going to be big news there for R.A.W.S. Remember, he needs to try to work his way forward here as James Hebb still able to keep ahead just barely of Plaisance, and we've got our first taker down pit lane, Eric Kulaga.
I think this is scheduled as well, just to try and get himself out of the traffic. Now Venkataju with a bit of an over and under, trying to get down the inside into turn 3 for P3. We'll see if he can do it. It will be the place. A little bit late on the brakes from Rasmussen there, and so Venkataju is back into third. This is just costing them all so much time, and the both of them are going to get dragged into the battle with the likes of James Hebb and everybody else behind that's involved in all of that if they're not careful.
Oh, and Rasmussen doesn't want to go quietly here. He's going to poke his nose to the outside, trying to see if there's a little bit of room to be had. Going down now into the hairpin, trying to be able to hold that out. Whoa, wiggle contact between the two.
Wow, Venkataju's life would have flashed before his eyes there, because that was a big save and a big moment. Rasmussen ended up off the road in the end. Let's hope they haven't, they both have not got any damage from that, because wheel-to-wheel contact can do strange things. But it looks like they've both sort of gotten away with it somehow.
Let's go back and take a look at the replay here. This was just kind of a bumping and banging all the way through. Oh, there was a little bit of that dreaded N-word, the net code, coming out to bite.
A little bit, but I also feel like Kurt Rasmussen was on the trajectory going towards that Mercedes anyway. So I would slightly put that one on him, but I feel like it wasn't really his fault. He just lost the rear a little bit, and then it ended up drifting into the line a little bit. So I'm not really sure, but either way, there certainly was contact. As, by the way, in the background here, Casey Metzger's on the back of Justin Delano. Metzger is by far and away the fastest driver in this field, but I just don't think he's going to have much time to get further than third in this race.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. He's just running out of time here to be able to get himself forward. As here we take a look at the top leaders right now. Houston and Ponce still remaining in 1-2 order. They haven't really changed around all that much as they go. So trying to see here, does Ponce try to get that move? We saw some feistiness out of him earlier, but I don't really think here at this point that he wants to get by. I think he's taking your advice here, Ewan, and I think he's waiting for the pit stop strategy to play out for him.
I think it's a much safer thing to do, really. I know it's the more boring one, and and you don't always want to see it, but I do think it is the best choice here for Ponce to stay behind and try and make that move in the pit stop. It is a lot easier to save fuel when you've got a car to draft off in front of you like that, so it's not a bad idea. And of course, it also keeps everybody from third on back away as well, because if they do fight really helpful ever for the second half of this race, the whole second half, then they might get caught. There's a risk they would anyway.
Yeah, certainly, and 14 seconds may seem like an absolutely insurmountable gap to be able to make up, but you never know. As you said, if they do start to scruff it out a little bit, we could see some catching in as they run. Ponce now, though, about 0.5 of a second behind. That's about the longest back we've seen him in quite a few laps here at this point.
It seems to be, yeah, but not much changing in this little battle at the moment. It has to be said. We're waiting for those pit stops. Really, Campbell's closing in on R.A.W.S, I suppose, but not too much going on in Pro either at the moment. The battles towards the front are not really changing, but that one for fifth on backwards in AM does look particularly crazy, and has been particularly crazy so far.
It's getting particularly fierce as well as we continue to watch that battle for the lead. No real movement, although as soon as I say that, here we go. Plaisant's taking a look down to the inside. That's going to be Delano, seeing if he can pick up any of the pieces here. If he and Heb come together, Rasmussen up front is going to be coming down into pit lane. Not the best run there for Delano, but he may be able to carry a little bit more momentum. That's going to be Heb trying to break the slipstream and getting off to the outside of turn one. Here comes Delano, though.
Oh, Metzger had the run on everybody there. He's going to have to wait for this battle to watch out. Oh, Plaisance and Delano still side by side. The Ferrari doing a good job to hold on around the outside through the first part, but not able to do it into turn three as well. Metzger able to pick up the pieces. That was expected. He was just going to wait to see who came out on top and then follow whoever it was going through. And so Metzger will surely be in the top five before long.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. As you mentioned this a little bit earlier, Campbell starting to close in on the back of R.A.W.S here, and Campbell getting a great run out of the final, or out of Jean Debienne rather, headed down towards Sunset. Is he going to have a little bit of a poke to the inside? He's fading that way, but I think he's going to back off before they go into the braking zone. I wonder if he's trying to save a little bit of fuel, maybe eke out another lap or two here before he comes down pit lane, or maybe he's going to go for it. Little bit of a blunt of the momentum there for R.A.W.S though.
Has lost a little bit down onto the front straight now into turn one. I do think his days are numbered in terms of being in this second position at this stage. Campbell, I think, will be able to get through pretty shortly, although it won't be on this particular lap anyway. I mean, we've seen this in the first race. Towards the end, Bose was just losing a bit of pace compared to Campbell, and it seems to be happening again here. Compared to Ouellette, compared to Campbell, Wills just doesn't seem to have that at the moment.
No, he doesn't, but Delano certainly has some of that fight as he tries to take it there to Casey Metzger around the outside of Jean Debienne. That is not something you see every day.
Well, you certainly don't. It was Metzger firing it down the inside, really, but the fact that he did fire it down there meant that he didn't get a very good exit, and so he's not been able to make it. However, down the inside into Sunset Bend, he has done that now. Delano gives him a very wide bit of space there, and possibly to set up a bit of a run onto the front straight, but I can't see him making this move.
Well, it looked like he had a little bit of a wiggle there coming off of the corner, so that may have blunted his momentum just a little bit. But now as they dive down in there, that is the BMW there of mailing around. And oh, that's James Heb! James Heb off and into the barriers!
I thought he was going to be able to get away from all of those drivers, and he might have done, but that mistake there has cost him badly. And so he drops behind all of these drivers once again, and everybody gets promoted up a place once more.
Everything's still firing off here, and with about 20 minutes left to go in this race, there are plenty of errors that you have to avoid around this ever-tricky Sebring circuit. We watch here from the back of Harry Wills. I'm getting the sense that Campbell is relatively content right now, doesn't want to make that move. I think he is waiting for pit stops to fire off. The question's going to be is who's going to blink first? Is it going to be Harry Wills or is it going to be Sean Campbell? Let's wait and see. Neither of them will come down pit lane this time around.
It can't be much more than 3 laps now until we see pit stops actually being made in the for the leaders. So during the next 3 laps anyway, we'll be seeing those. But slowly through lap on lap, we're going to see more drivers down on pit lane. And it's really going to change this race, really. Possibly in AM as well. I think when they all come out, there's going to be a completely different order to what there is right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. Things are drastically going to change around. By the way, we have had Urexoy, Rasmussen, Kulaga, and Casey all down into pit lane. So those are the only 4 drivers up to this point that have opted to come into the pits here. But now, as you see this big train of cars in the AM category working their way down the back stretch, you've got to start to think that some will either start to do it. Kulaga maybe thinks about a move down to the inside there of Plaisance, maybe just to try to scare him offline a little bit. Now, this can be a little bit of a difficult pit entry here, as there we see Malin coming on in.
Yeah, wanting the early call there to get out of the traffic, and it's a great call when you're in the AMs because you will come out in clean air. If you're in a bit of a train, he could well find himself ahead of both of these before long, but Lager for the moment will hold 6th place. Plaisance has done a fairly good job actually to hold on to the places while he's had them. But in the end, they're always difficult. When you're one of the slower drivers, you start towards the front in the reverse grid race. You do know that you're in for a long race of getting overtaken. As James Heber's off again.
I wonder if that car's maybe picked up a little bit of under tray damage or maybe bumped the nose there a little bit, as that is the 2nd time in so many laps that we've seen James Heb around. No, that one's got a little bit easier of an explanation. That was some contact there with the 74 of Drew Neubauer.
Yeah, a bit silly, really. Just getting into the back of the Mercedes in front through a non-braking zone as well. So it's a little bit silly, but there we are. Gone for a spin, recovered, and hopefully will recover throughout the race. As these 2 leaders continue to refuse to battle, it's really a case of whether Fabian Ponce has saved enough fuel to jump him in the pit stops.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be the question that we really keep our eye on here. And as we tick down 32 minutes down in this race, only 18 left to go, I've got to start to think that we see pit stops fire off. The other thing to remember here is this is a 3.7-mile circuit. This is one of the longer circuits in all of North America. And indeed, there we go. Houston coming down pit lane. My question was going to be is if the pit window is going to be a little bit condensed because of the length of this circuit, but Ponce playing it to perfection, able to stay out.
Yeah, it is slightly condensed around here because of that, but yeah, I think we're seeing this now. Houston not really able to go much further than what he just has done, and Ponce certainly is able to. So this will be interesting now as Jeff Corolla makes his way through on Matthew Plaisance, who's pitting anyway here. We've just got to make sure that Houston comes out in clean air as well, because if he comes out in traffic, and it could be a very easy battle settler there with the Ponce. Possibly Houston will come out in traffic. He's going to get lucky if indeed he avoids it.
Yeah, could get lucky indeed. Jeff Carollo, the Illinois driver, though, keeping it out on track here for the moment. As we said, Plaisance coming down into pit lane. Urexoy currently the highest of anyone who has pitted. He is up into 14th spot right now. Houston sorting right in behind him in 15th. Not entirely surprising there, as that is an AM and a Pro, respectively. So, there they go as we watch Ouellette coming down through Sunset. Is he going to peel off down pit lane? Yes, he is. Looking behind. Very, very interesting. Sean Campbell comes on in, but Wills stays out.
I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference for Wills, really. I can't see him jumping Campbell. It is slightly bizarre that he's been able to save a lap of fuel compared to Campbell. And he hasn't really been running in slipstream of anybody for long periods of that first stint. But either way, he's been able to carry on somehow. And he will go out and lead a lap at least. But I don't think it will have too much of a bearing on the outcome of this race.
No, I don't think it will as well. The question, though, is going to be: now that Campbell is released, is he going to be able to close down on Ouellette here in these final 15 minutes or so? As there's only about 2 seconds. It's call it about 2.3 separating the two once they've come out of pit lane.
It's not too much, or it's not dissimilar to what we saw in the first part of this race between those two. So yeah, we'll see how it goes to the very end, as most of them do come in as well in the AM category, apart from Fabian Ponce, who has not only saved 1 lap on Houston, but 2 here, and as long as his pit stop time is short enough, then he might well have the jump.
Might well have the jump, and that could certainly help him out if he's able to be a little bit quicker stationary in the box. And oh, my calculations are actually wrong there with Ouellette and Campbell. He has already closed that down. It's 0.3 of a second between Ouellette and Campbell right now as they run.
Very close indeed, very close. Campbell did have a slightly shorter pit stop of about a second with Ouellette. I think he was just a bit braver with the fuel load and how much he actually had to put in there. So Ouellette has really lost a lot of time, and that will be a battle for the race lead when R.A.W.S comes in, which we're presuming is going to happen right now. It's 35 minutes into the race after all. So now it is finally time to come down pit lane. But yeah, Ouellette and Campbell are going to fight for the race win.
Yeah, they certainly are. It also looks like we've got a few other drivers coming down. I think that was Florea I saw ducking down into pit lane. There is that battle that we talked about between Ouellette and Campbell coming down the Ullman Straight right now. Campbell in that black and red Lamborghini. Ouellette in the twisted liveried Mercedes, working their way through right now, keeping an eye here on R.A.W.S to see when he is going to start moving down out of the pits. He's still stationary. It's a little bit of a longer stop there for Harry, 15.5 seconds. I don't think this is going to help him.
No, it doesn't look like it's going to help at all. He will exit the pit lane before them, but he has to go the long way around. Sean Campbell down the inside, though, but more importantly, Ouellette on the outside. He's going to hold his own there, and he is going to stay in front. So the three of them not too far away from one another in the final minutes of this race.
No, with only about 13.5 minutes left to go, the top three are only separated by about 1.8 seconds, so the race is on, especially here if these two hold themselves up battling a little bit, but Campbell doesn't want to wait around for R.A.W.S to catch up. He's going to chuck that Lamborghini down to the inside of the hairpin, send it down to the inside of Ouellette, and easy as you please, that's move done and dusted.
He couldn't really afford for that to become a three-car battle where he was stuck in the middle of everybody. So he decided to make the move before that could happen, and Ouellette in the end couldn't really respond. In the AMs, we have seen Ponce take the lead. I do believe his pit stop was 3 seconds shorter than Houston's very nearly, and so that has given him a fairly big lead, and they've still got a fairly big lead over the rest, although Rasmussen is now ahead of Venkataraji, who had a very long stop there, 23 seconds for him, and it's meant that, yeah, he's a long way down in 5th place now.
That could spell a little bit of disaster there for his championship hopes, especially as he's going to have Justin Delano hot on his heels, only about 0.6 of a second behind him. So that is a very, very close running battle, and I'm sure Delano's going to want to try to get on by.
He is, but it's easier said than done. I think at this stage, only gaining 2 points for Venkataraji. You have to do the maths, obviously, on it again, but I don't think it would be enough. Here at the moment, I think he would be a point short of keeping this alive, so Venkataraji needs to catch and pass somebody in front. I can't see him catching Casey Metzger and passing him. Andrew Rasmussen maybe, but it's going to be a tall order.
Going to be a very tall order indeed as they now come down into the hairpin here, trying to see what they were able to do. Excuse me, it was Cunningham that they came through right there, but waiting to flick their way around. We follow Michael Kulaga right now in that Ferrari with the Lamborghini of Jeff Carollo hot on his heels. Want to give some credit there to them. Eric Kulaga up ahead of them, up 9 in that Audi is Metzger. Metzger just had a little bit of a connection issue as there you see Carollo sweeping on through.
A nice pass into Bishop there. So up into what is 8th place now for Carollo, recovering after that spin he had a little bit earlier on, and Campbell now, you can just see him getting away from the rest of the field. He can't see him losing this race, can't see him losing this championship from here either. He might even have it sealed up by the end of this race.
Yeah, very well could be as cars work their way down through sunset here as the sun starts to set around Sebring. It is just at about 5:45 virtual standard time, so obviously starting to get darker here and those headlights starting to come into play. We won't have full daylight going away on us, but certainly will get a little bit darker around this Central Florida Speedway. As there we watch that battle we were talking about. Shez Ben Conrataju and Delano there behind trying to close in.
Yeah. We are, by the way, speaking of the darkness, by the way, just distracted because Daytona will be in the dark between both of those races. We will finish under the floodlights there. But yeah, while the headlights are showing us a bit more, it's not exactly going to end in the darkness here today. Thankfully, it's just only going to get colder for these guys, which means they're only going to get quicker.
Yes, indeed, as it has dropped a little bit down to 72 degrees Fahrenheit out on track right now. Winds pretty much negligible at only about 2 miles an hour, so really not a whole lot there. But we watch right now Eric Kulaga trying to hold off the hard-charging Jeff Carollo. Carollo being able to send the pass on the other Kulaga there in the Ferrari. Now he's got the Audi in his sights.
Yeah, should be able to make this move as well. Been impressed with Jeff Carollo's pace since his recovery from the spin earlier on. It was at Tower Corner. He dropped way down, and in the end, he's been recovering very well. In the end, Kulaga just got out of his way, and Michael Kulaga is now going to be battling with him.
Yes, he is. And there we've got it. But now coming up behind them is that BMW of Braden Mainling. Remember, a little bit out of position there is Braden. I got to think he's going to be eager to try to get himself forward. And indeed, he's going to be able to get by the Kulaga Ferrari entry there down to the inside in a straight drag race. It's not going to be done and dusted, though, by the time they get into sunset. Let's wait and see how they pop their way out around the corner. And it looks like Mainling's able to hold it out.
Looks like it. Hard to tell. Just for the moment, but yeah, Mainling did look like he's ahead of Michael Kulaga now at least. Just James Hebb's off again, I'm afraid. That's us at Le Mans now, once again, and what was looking so good earlier on is not looking so good anymore.
No, it sadly is not, but Andrew Rasmussen here is not out of the woods quite yet. He holds on to third place right now, but he has Casey Metzger breathing down his neck. About 0.8 of a second behind is Metzger in that Mercedes, and that's going to be looming large in his rearview mirror.
He's not helped by that incident there, but I think Metzger was going to catch and pass him anyway because he's a lot quicker. Metzger quicker than anybody in the Anfield, really. So fast today. Best lap of the race was a 58.2, which is only 1.2 seconds slower than Sean Campbell's at the front of the field. Quicker indeed than one or two of the pro drivers. So Metzger has been very quick indeed. It's finally a pro battle kind of developing itself here. For over fourth place at the moment, Tenorio versus Chase Wilson.
Yeah, good little battle starting to go. 0.4 of a second separating them with about 7.5 minutes left to go here at Sebring. And now diving down into the braking zone of turn 2. These drivers work their way through the Gurney Bend. That gap coming down a little bit, call it 1 car length. You can see Wilson there trying to take a little bit of an alternate line to be able to bring that in. And they've got to be a little bit careful. Dean Timms only about 1.3 seconds behind them. If these two scrap too much, Timms is going to be right into this equation.
Will be, and he might well be anyway. He didn't have a good start to this race, Timms. And I thought he was going to stay there in the last place, but got through on Urexoy after problems, and he's picked the pace up, and so he's on the back of these guys as well. It could well be a 3-car battle towards the end. Tenorio is going to struggle to keep everybody behind, really. He doesn't seem to be quite as quick anymore, and is struggling to keep drivers behind as Metzger does now get through. Surprised it took him that long, really, but now he's up to third.
Yeah, I was a little surprised it took him that much as well, but we will have to see as they go right now. Now waiting behind Mainling, now going to try to put his eyes on the other Kulaga up ahead of him in that Audi.
Yeah, another nice move from Mainling to make his way through. It looks like it's going to be third place in the championship for him. He can't catch any of the drivers in front, and he can't really be caught from any drivers behind either, although Casey Metzger with the season, or at least the race he's having right now, could catch Mainling, I suppose. Yeah, nearly 20 points of a gain, actually. Certainly more than 10, so maybe Melling will fall off the overall podium by the end of this season, but it's certainly going to be close. It does need to pick up the pace a little bit because it's not really been a very strong day for him.
Yeah, it hasn't exactly been the strongest, as you said, and it's a little bit surprising. We've seen him have some great runs over the course of the year, and as you said, third place in that championship, so not like this is a driver that's down on pace overall. This could just be a little bit of an errant track for him, as you and I have talked about. That was a very scary moment there, getting off into the grass.
That was very close, but a good save from Manning to hold on to the car. Kulaga going to send it down the inside, but not really with any conviction through the right-hander, so stays behind indeed for a few more laps. Still think, by the way, we've got 4 laps to go here, despite the fact there's only 5 minutes. For the pro guys, it will be about 3.5 as they're running right now, but even so, still plenty of laps left.
Yeah, plenty of time still here to fire off, and that's going to be good news here for Chase Wilson, who's still trying to get his way on by Dan Tenorio right now as they work their way through the back half of the track. Ooh, a little bit of a squirrely exit there out of that corner for Dean Timms. You saw the rear end of that Mercedes really starting to break away as he went, but now we've got a little bit of side-by-side Kulaga trying to defend now, or attack rather, on Mailing. Mailing being put into defensive mode. That's not what I was expecting to see.
No, this is really the point about Mailing's pace here today. It's just not quite been there, and so yeah, he's really struggled with the car so far, and that's making his life very difficult indeed. As Sean Campbell makes his way over the line just now, I think he is going to get 3 more laps in here because he's not showing any signs of slowing down.
No, he certainly is not. As there you can see Sean Campbell, your leader, crossing over the line, and I think you're about right with that assessment. Lap times coming in here at about 157.9. Whoa, that was a car off in the background there, I believe, or at least I thought it was. Somebody having a little bit of a bad run of things there. As we focus on R.A.W.S right now. Oh, was that James Hebb? Yes, it was. Unfortunately, James Hebb's day coming to an end here. Let's watch. Just got it a little bit wrong. The rear end of that car wanted to break away and just hard into the barriers on the left-hand side of the track.
It never really looked settled in turn 1 there through that particular occasion anyway. That's, it almost looks like we're watching a replay of this battle here as well. Kulaga did almost exactly that thing going towards the final corners and Le Mans here on Mailing. Kind of looked, sniffed around, but decided not to go for a move in the end. It was almost an exact copy there for Kulaga, and so he will stay behind. Once again, one of those battles that just frustratingly for Kulaga doesn't really look like he's going to change.
Yeah, I just don't think he really has the outright pace at all corners of this track to really be able to get by that BMW, as it seems like every single time he gets close, it just starts to go away from him. Let's consider a little bit of the car differences here. BMW, as we said, pretty decent in a straight line, a little bit understeery, but one of the main detriments of the Ferrari is it does tend to chew the tires a little bit, so I wonder if he's maybe overdriven the car a little bit at this point and is just losing some grip behind the wheel of that prancing horse.
It's hard to tell. I mean, throughout this season, it's not been the car of choice, let's say, both in iRacing for Season 3 this year, or indeed in the World Series GT3 Championship. Not really been the car to choose. But it's very hard to judge these things, really, because after all, we've got different drivers driving these cars. So it's very hard to tell. Casey Metzger is certainly under a lot more pressure than he was previously. Was expecting him to really get away from Rasmussen very quickly, but that has not happened.
No, it certainly has not. And here's another battle that we've got starting to play out even closer here as Wilson and Timms and Tenorio all 1, 2, 3 right now. This is the battle for 4th place as they cross over the start-finish line there. That was 2 laps to go given by Barney the Flagman, so a battle of the Mercedes here to play out.
And still Tenorio stays in front. I'm surprised that Wilson hasn't even attempted a move just yet. Because we are running out of time. We are on the penultimate lap here at Sebring, so I would have expected a move by now, but for the moment, Tenorio has been able to hold on to that place without any issues at all. This is the first little hint of a move, and Wilson, it's all gone wrong for him a little bit. He dove it deep under brakes, got into the side of Tenorio, and ended up having a half spin.
Yes, he did. Just got that braking zone a little bit wrong. Made contact there, and Wilson off to the inside. Frankly, a little bit lucky that that wasn't a bigger move. But here's Jeff Carollo trying to put down Justin Delano a position. Now, this could have a little bit of implication here in the championship. If Delano loses a position, that's going to be a couple points that he loses going into the final round, and he could lose out just a little bit of that firm standing for the AM championship. Not able to get it there through turn 1. Carollo's going to have a little bit of a look back through turn 2, thinks better of it, gets back onto the racing line.
I think as things stand, Delano would seal the title. I wouldn't be sure enough to say because it is so close. But either way, if Carollo gets through here, then it definitely would go on to Daytona and those final couple of races. So it's looking fairly nervy for Delano at the moment, and he doesn't want to get involved in an incident, especially because finishing 7th place and not sealing it here is a lot better than not finishing the race at all.
Indeed, and by the way, the white flag is in the air for your leader. Sean Campbell. He has crossed over the start-finish line and has been given the 1-to-go mark by Barney the Flagman, just getting by Charles Bochelle right there. And so only one more lap for the rest of these drivers to get their move done.
It's been a very dominant performance once again from Sean Campbell, who I do think is going to seal the Pro Championship here in the US. Here for this one, his teammate Alex Urenga sealed the EU Championship in the earlier race, and I think that Campbell is going to do the same here in the later one. Yeah, it's been another dominant drive from Campbell here. He was not quite able to, was able to get the double here this week. Wasn't quite able to last week or in previous weeks. It has actually been since Donington the last time we saw him take 2 races in one night.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute, but his dominance has never been in doubt. He just slowly but surely worked his way up through the field here tonight. It's been a great run for Sean Campbell as now he works on the Flying Fortress Straight and through Bishop for the final time. Now through Jean Debienne in lining up here for Le Mans. One more time on to the Ulmann straightaway. A little bit of a hairy moment there coming out of Jean Debienne, it has to be said, but he's now onto the straight and one more corner to go.
Yeah, it's just going to be a case of keeping it on the road here, just enjoying it, and then Campbell will be able to enjoy a victory. There could be a bit of a battle for second between Ouellette and Wills, although it does seem a little bit too little too late for Wills.
I think it is, but it is plenty in time for Sean Campbell as he exits out of Sunset Corner and crosses over the start-finish line to take victory here at Sebring, and we believe wrap up the championship.
Should well do. We've known this for quite a long time, really, that Campbell was going to win this championship because he has been dominant in it, but now it may well just be confirmed. Dan Tenorio beats Dean Timms as well in the top 5 in the pro category. Chase Wilson, in the end, that late move didn't pay off for him.
No, it certainly did not, as it's not going to be in time there for him. But as we watch Fabian Ponce here, your leader in the AM category, a fantastic run for Fabian. Really dominant from the beginning of the drop of the green flag. Had that battle for the longest time with Houston and then able to jump ahead courtesy of the pit stops.
It was a really nice strategic race from Fabian Ponce in the end, really, to be able to do that. To stay behind through the first part, save that fuel, get a shorter pit stop, come out in front, and then execute perfectly in the second half of the race. That's exactly what he's done to take quite a large winning margin by the end.
Yeah, quite a good one there for him as checkered flag flying here on Andrew Rasmussen, who was able to put in a good race. Michael Kudlaga, rather, who was really kind of in the wars there, really fighting it out for a lot of that race with Mayling directly up ahead of him. Here comes Eric Blumenkrantz. He's going to make things a little bit interesting coming out of those final couple of corners.
Well, he is the last running driver to come across the line. Worse than behind, still out there. Going to finish a lap down in the end, like Daniel Florea, but Blumenkrantz is going to be our final driver across the line. Yeah, nearly didn't make it with that final chicane through there. Luckily for him, he's going to make it to the end, and after nearly 54 minutes, it was a scheduled 50-minute race, but he's gone for nearly 5 minutes longer here.
Yeah, as he's able to bring it around and come across the line. And that is going to wrap up all of our drivers here today from what was an action-packed race at Sebring. Let's run you through those final finishing order here as Campbell took victory over Willett, and we believe that that will give him the championship for this season. Harry Wills came home third with Dan Tenorio in fourth, followed by Dean Timms rounding out your top five. Chase Wilson and R.A.W.S were sixth and seventh, and Jeremy Littleton rounds out your pro category.
In the AMS, it was a very nice drive from Fabian Potts to win over Andrew Houston, who was nearly caught by Casey Metzger. Andrew Rasmussen was very quick as well today, ahead of Shesh Venkataju. Justin Delano will retain the championship lead with that sixth place. Has he sealed it today? You'll have to come back next week to find out about that. Jeff Carollo, seventh place ahead of Eric Kulaga, Braden Melling, who is out of the fight now, and Michael Kulaga rounding out the top 10. Drew Neubauer and Eric Blumenkrantz were the final drivers on the lead lap. Charles Boscho had just one lap down with Daniel Florea and John Casey. Matthew Plaisance ended up falling behind towards the end of that race after a very good run inside the top 10. James Hebb's multiple spins eventually put him in the pit lane for good. Stephen Martinez's damage eventually did for him as well. Andrew Hewitt and Victor Brass also did not emerge from the pit lane, eventually finished many laps down.
Yeah, many laps down there, but folks, that's about going to wrap up our coverage for tonight's event here at the Sebring International Raceway. But please join us next week as we will have the finale of the season at the world-famous Daytona International Speedway there under the lights, as you heard Ewan preview a little bit earlier, so you're not going to want to miss that one. The same way we've got it here today, though, a race of 25 minutes and then a race of 50 minutes. But we would like to really sincerely thank you for joining us here today. It's been a pleasure to bring you the racing action, and on behalf of myself, DJ Clark, as well as my co-commentator here in the booth, Ewan O'Leary, as well as our director and producer, David Christie, until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.